don't, since it's not technically the official start of the meeting, but Michelle will be here, but you can get started.
Okay, will do.
She might be upset that she's missed the first part of it, but
I
I'm
will
willing to
be
take that
happy
chance.
to repeat anything,
Okay.
and if you want an encore, I'll let the applause
Okay,
dictate
cool.
whether I go back through everything.
Very good. It's so weird at my board meetings, once I get up to present, everyone just leaves. All the celebrations are done. Nobody
Yeah.
cares about the numbers.
Yeah.
So rude, right?
All right, well, President Berrigan, members of the board, and Dr. Sprout, I'll be presenting our 2025-26 budget and truth in taxation hearing now. I'll begin with a quick review of our 2025-26 budget, and then we'll hand it off to Ashley Miranda, our Executive Director of Finance, to present our truth in taxation hearing connected to the budget. So as a reminder, adopting a budget by July 15th each year is a state law. Back in June, we proposed our budget for next school year on June 12th. After that meeting, the budget was uploaded to the Department of Education website and also available on our district website and has been there since that time. And the budget that's on the agenda for adoption tonight is the exact same budget that was proposed and has been available since that time. One thing that's changed since the June meeting is that the state legislature has now adjourned sine die for the 2025 session, and the state budget has been passed. So we now know that the numbers that we're working with for next year are good, and there's less uncertainty than when we met last month. To give a quick overview of our major fund budget for next year, our maintenance and operations fund budget will be $73.5 million. That represents an increase of $4.5 million over the 24-25 fiscal year. And our unrestricted capital fund budget will be $26.6 million. That fund includes a lot of balance that's been accumulated over time for large projects, and so the budget this year is a little bit lower than last year since we did use a portion of that balance to acquire land back in December. Share a few of the notable changes that are affecting our maintenance and operations fund budget for next year. 2% increase to the base level in the state funding formula grows our budget by about $1.1 million. We're projecting a 2% increase in student enrollment. That'll grow the budget by about $1.1 million as well. And this year we're up about 2.9%, so that's a fairly conservative growth assumption that we've built into the budget. A few other things that are affecting our budget for next year are growth in our override, which is driven by prior year student enrollment, a little bit of growth in our fund balance compared to last year, shifting some resources from our capital budget back to our M&O budget in anticipation of school number 10 opening next year, and removing some of the non-recurring funding that we did not assume in our proposed budget last month. The most important single determinant of funding for Arizona school districts is the number of students enrolled, and so we're assuming 2% growth in average daily membership, or the metric of enrollment that we're funded based on for next year. This graph just shows our historical average daily membership going back to 2017. We've been on a steady growth trajectory, and our budget for next year assumes that that will continue. This next slide just takes a look at our maintenance and operations fund budget by separating out the portion that is fund balance carried forward from previous years from the portion that's new revenue coming in during the year. And we have accumulated some additional reserves in the last few years, and some of that will be spent down with the opening of School 10 next year. Shifting over to our capital fund budget, the primary factor increasing or affecting our budget for next year is prior year enrollment because of the way that state funding formulas work, and then also the fact that we spent some of our fund balance down this year for large capital projects. Looking at the same slide that we looked at for our maintenance and operations fund budget on the capital side, this shows in the green the portion of our unrestricted capital budget that's fund balance or reserves accumulated in previous years. The gray is the recurring annual revenue that comes in, and so our recurring revenue has been pretty stable, but over the last few years we've accumulated balances for some of the large capital projects that are now underway, and so we'll see that green bar go down a little bit and then begin to grow as we accumulate for the next round of future projects. The classroom site fund budget will also be increasing for next year. The classroom site fund is where revenues from the state's 0.6% sales tax for education are accumulated. The classroom site fund allocation per weighted student went up this year compared to 2024-25, up to $842 per student from $792. That grows our revenue into that fund in a way that supports the salary schedules that were adopted earlier this year. And the classroom site fund will continue to fund 16% of teacher salaries as it did last year. Speaking of teacher salaries, our starting teacher salary increased to over $58,000 this year, or for the 25-26 school year. That's before the $3,000 stipend that's available for harder to fill positions like special education or middle school science. And that also excludes the up to $3,800 in performance pay that's available to teachers. Considering all of that, our average teacher salary is projected to be over $74,000 this year, or for 25-26, and will remain among the highest paying school districts in the state with that average teacher salary. With that, I'm going to hand off the presentation to Ashley Miranda, our Executive Director of Finance, to present on our Truth in Taxation hearing.
Thank you, Charlie. Good afternoon, President Berrigan, Dr. Sprout, members of the board. The Arizona state law specifies specific processes for school district budgets and has certain requirements for property taxes levied to support those budgets. One such requirement applies to adjacent wage levies, which is funding that can be used to make improvements to properties adjacent to a school district-owned property, such as sidewalks, streets, and utilities. Any levy for adjacent ways is subject to a truth in taxation hearing, which we published the required notice for this hearing on June 26th. And a screenshot of that notice is here on the right hand of this slide. The truth in taxation levy for adjacent ways this year is $1,051,580,000. This slide is a great illustration of that process for adjacent ways levy. The slide is part of a presentation that I'm honored to co-present with Stiefel and Heinfeld Meach next week at the Arizona Association of Business Officials Summer Conference. And I thought it was just a great slide to provide with you today. The rate needed to generate the $1,051,580 has decreased a small amount from last year, maintaining our tax rate stable for adjacent ways. This next slide illustrates the impact of adjacent ways per $100,000 for home values. And this year the amount is approximately $25 per $100,000 of home value, and is almost about $2 lower than last year. And I'll turn it back over to Charlie.
And so Ashley shared information there on our tax levy specific to the adjacent ways portion of our budget, but that's a pretty small component of all of the different property taxes that support the districts. We also wanted to share a holistic look at all of our tax rates and how those have changed over time. And as Levine is growing, we're fortunate that our tax base is also growing, and our tax rates continue the downward trajectory that started back in 2021 thanks to that growth. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about our 2025-26 budget or truth in taxation hearing,
Any questions?
or any questions from the public as well.
Any questions from the public? Did he threaten you and say, "Don't you dare ask a question"? You're like, "No, we just don't want to look stupid." Okay, well, thank you. I know that takes a lot of time to put together, even little bits and pieces like the truth in taxation notice and making sure that's posted in the paper in time and all of that. And there are some positive pieces, in our budget this year. There's not a lot of positive budget information for education in Arizona, but we do have, the spending that's happening for school number 10. That's excellent to see that finally coming into fruition, and some additional classroom site fund dollars and things like that. So happy to see that. All right, I think we're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I still can't, I'll just go by paper. I got the email, but it's like just saying to type in the information. Okay. All right, call to order, please.
Mrs. Berrigan?
I am here.
Mrs. Getzke?
Here.
Mrs. Anderson? Here. Mrs. Begg? Mrs. Bell?
Okay, and if we can all stand, please, and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we need to approve the agenda for the evening. Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. And the approval of the minutes from the June 12th meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. And now Dr. Sprout, Superintendent's report. 48 pages again today,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
You're not going to let that one go. Thank you, President Berrigan and board members. We have a one-slide, so everything is averaging out at this point, but we have a one-slide presentation.
Okay.
Wanted to simply remind you of some very important upcoming events. Here we are, a few weeks out from new staff reporting, and so we'll have new staff induction on the 23rd and 24th of July. Followed by our welcome back celebration, which will be at Grand Canyon University again. Looking forward to hopefully seeing the board there on that Wednesday. Then Meet the Teacher Night will follow the next day on the 31st, and then the first day of school on August 4th. So here we go. We are very excited to start the 25-26 school year.
It's hard to believe.
Yeah.
I have the kickoff for 8 a.m. to 10 a.m.
It will actually start at 9 a.m.
Okay, so I probably blocked all that off. Okay, got it. Excellent. That's
We'll have a
always fun.
wonderful breakfast and have a lot of fun before it starts, and then we're looking forward to a great event. So,
Very good. All right, thank you. Sorry, I gotta get my glasses out for the hard copy paper. Okay. We have the district budget adoption presentation. Do we have an additional presentation beyond what was shared?
That was incorporated into the truth and taxation here.
Gotcha. Okay. Why is that not an action item?
that will be.
And the board action later.
I see, got it. Okay, so we now have our legislative update presentation. Charlie?
Yes.
Excellent.
All right, President Berrigan, members of the governing board, and Dr. Sprout. I have a brief update on the legislative session that just ended about 2 weeks ago and some of the items that were enacted this session that will affect school districts. So the legislature passed the 2026 state budget and adjourned sine die, ending their session on June 27th, so around 2 weeks ago. And that makes the general effective date for any legislation passed this session without an emergency clause, September 26th of 2025. There are many fewer pieces of legislation that have an emergency clause, so that is largely when everything passed this session will go into effect. And as a result of the new legislation that was passed this session, there will be some policy changes forthcoming. So over the next month or two, we'll be working as a district to review changes, work with our partner organizations that are taking a deeper dive into some of these things, and then coming back with any policy updates and making sure that we're implementing those on the district side. The state budget has a significant impact on school districts and is very important to our budget every year. And it was great that while we proposed our budget before the state budget had passed, the assumptions that we used proved reasonable. There weren't any negative surprises in the budget that the state passed a few weeks ago. The state budget includes a 2% inflation adjustment that increases formula funding for school districts. It also continues funding increases that were created about 10 years ago by Proposition 123, and that continues even though the higher distributions from the state land trust that has funded a portion of that over the last 10 years were not continued. So we'll continue to receive that formula funding from the state general fund in the budget that was passed. There were also a few somewhat pleasant surprises in the budget. Some one-time funding from the 24-25 school year is continued as one-time funding in the 25-26 school year. This is some add-on funding for students that are eligible for free or reduced price lunch, and also an increase in funding for district additional assistance, which is formula funding for school district capital. Those two things before last year had been put into the state budget as ongoing funding. Last year, when the state budget was passed, it was shifted to one-time funding for last year, and fortunately, it becomes two-time funding this year, and hopefully will be continued ongoing beginning next year. The state budget also includes some changes that aren't tied directly to funding. A few notable things for school districts are that language that extends the ability of public schools tax credits to be used for capital items and some other expenditures continues. So there was some authority that was on track to expire, but that flexibility continues. And then also, I think one of the more exciting parts of the state budget this year is that there was approval for school districts to exceed what's known as the aggregate expenditure limit, not just in the 2025-26 school year, but also in the 2026-27 school year. So without this authority included in the state budget, next spring there could be some tense weeks hoping that this authority was given and the aggregate expenditure limit was waived for the year. But having that done in advance takes some of the uncertainty away and allows school districts to spend the money that's been included in the state budget. I'll highlight a few other bills that passed that affect school districts, and this is meant as kind of an FYI summary. As I mentioned, there'll be some deeper looks at these bills and looks at how they affect district policy over the next month or two. Senate Bill 1225 requires teaching age-appropriate curriculum about September 11th, beginning in 7th grade. House Bill 2164 prohibits the use of certain additives and dyes in school meals. This is, if you saw news headlines, what was referred to as the ultra-processed foods bill. And our child nutrition director, Jennifer Gordon, provided some testimony to the state legislature as part of this policy proposal. House Bill 2484 requires schools to have policies on internet usage, wireless communications, and restricting social media platforms. And House Bill 2154 requires an annual notice to parents of specified parent engagement rights information. House Bill 2019 requires schools to include information about water safety courses in their enrollment packets. 2170 requires individual education programs to indicate whether a child has been diagnosed with dyslexia, so a new requirement for IEPs. 2540 authorizes written or hard copy statewide assessments under certain circumstances. And House Bill 2074 updates requirements related to the school safety program. That was a larger bill with a number of changes related to the school safety program that I'm sure we'll take a closer look at over the next few months. Finally, Senate Bill 1106 creates civil liability for public entities like school districts that fail to fulfill statutory requirements for background checks or duty to report. And Senate Bill 1437 requires sexual misconduct of school employees to be reported to law enforcement, and then also includes school board members in that duty to report. That's a summary of the state budget and impact on school districts, and also some of the requirements and changes that were put into law during this legislative session. I'm happy to answer any questions about those items.
President Berrigan, members of the board, Dr. Sprout, and guests. Today, I'm excited to introduce the Levine Elementary School District's new Trust Model Policy Manual, developed in partnership with Attorney Jennifer McLennan from the Trust. Why a new policy manual? As laws evolve and the district needs to grow, we need a more streamlined, user-friendly, and up-to-date policy manual. The benefits of using the Trust are that the manual is customizable to the district's needs. It was developed by an experienced team of education attorneys. We will receive annual updates to reflect legislative and case law changes, and it is easier to navigate with clear numbering and well-organized categories. During our transition process, the council team worked closely with Jennifer, reviewing and comparing the ASBA and Trust Model Manual policies that have been modified or added where needed. Handbooks, forms, and training materials have been aligned with the new manual. The manual is divided into 5 chapters, each with 100 series number for easy reference. Chapter 1 is district governance, Chapter 2 is administration, Chapter 3 is business operations, and Chapter 4, human resources, Chapter 5, students. In this manual, the term procedure has replaced regulations, and forms have replaced what we know as exhibits in the ASBA manual. Our district's platform is being developed, but I wanted to show you what it will look like. It will have obviously our logo instead of the trust. It is a live platform to which edits can be made if the district needs to add, remove, or change a policy. We share the 495 pages of the manual with you, and our recommendation is that the governing board conduct the first reading of the proposed trust model policy manual and waive the second reading and adopt the proposed policies. This will allow our district to begin the school year using the policies as our agreement with ASBA has ended. Any questions?
Any questions? Oh, that's not the action item yet, is it? Is the action item going to be over here? Yes.
And then board action.
Okay. That was a practice vote, guys.
Excellent.
Okay. Sorry, this is all a little different, a little bit of a different format. Okay. Consent agenda, do I have a motion?
Motion? Second?
Motion and seconded. Any discussion? It's been motion and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, board consideration, budget adoption for fiscal year '26 based off of the budget presentation from Mr. Martin and Ms. Miranda. Do I have a motion?
Motion? Second?
Motion and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Next is the resolution committing district funds for school number 10. Do you have something to share, Dr. Sprout?
Yes, I
Yeah, go
do.
for it.
Thank you. President Berrigan, I did receive a question recently from a board member, Ms. Abeg, and the question was, why does a school district have to make up the difference between the actual costs of a school and what the SFOB provides us?
Yes.
And the simple answer to that is that they have a formula that they use that is not customizable to the needs of a school district. Wherever that school district is, if it's a rural or an urban, or and so school districts are simply left to making up the difference, and that is what we are recommending that you approve, because SFOB requires us to show that we will make up that difference.
Yeah.
And that will be using local funds, bonds, and adjacent ways to make up approximately $11 million gap between the actual cost of the school and what the SFOB provides us. Obviously, we're very thankful for the $32 million we received, but that is why we have this item before the board tonight.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dr. Sprout. Any questions? Do I have a motion?
Motion? Second?
Motion and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. And then we practiced this one, so this should be simple. Do I have a motion to approve the trust model policy manual?
Motion? Second?
Motion and seconded. Any discussion?
No.
Are you sure? All those in favor?
Aye.
What's that?
That's a nice job.
Yes, she did a great job. That was wonderful. Very nice. Okay, on to comments from the board. Mrs. Anderson.
Out because we are ready to send our kids back.
You still have about 4 weeks.
Close, but that's all I have. Thank you for everybody, and appreciate all you guys do.
Yeah, thanks everybody that holds down the fort in the summertime. You don't have to come next year. They do. You don't. Okay, our next meeting is on August 14th. We'll be 9 days into school at that point in time. 9 actual school days, right? Hard to believe. Hard to believe. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion. Second.
Motion and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All right, thanks, everybody.